Good morning, everyone. This is John with Gun Deals, and today we're going to be talking about the new-ish Vortex Micro 3x Magnifier. But before we get into the video, you can, of course, like, share, and subscribe, as all that sort of stuff is free and does help us out quite a bit. Also, go ahead and comment literally anything down below. Now, if you don't know, Gun.Deals is a website that provides you with links to some of the best prices within the industry. The deals themselves are posted by users and dealers alike, so again, whatever it is that you're looking for, you can probably find a link for it on Gun.Deals for the best possible price. So, if you like saving money on cool gear, go ahead and check them out. Now, with all of that out of the way, in full disclosure, we did pay full price for this optic. We have no affiliation with Vortex and this video whatsoever. I believe we picked this up from Bowtac for $199 on sale, which is a very good deal for a magnifier of this quality. So again, we have no affiliation with Vortex whatsoever. But before we go any further, we should probably talk about some of the boring specifications on the Vortex Micro 3x Magnifier. So very important on these micro style magnifiers is we have an eye relief of a claimed 2.64 inches, though it feels a little bit more generous than that. The field of view is 38.2 feet because they get very specific on all of their details, which is a good thing. Now 38 feet of field of view is good. It's definitely slightly above average for the 3x magnifier market, and so it is something I like to see. Overall, we're looking at a package that is just under 3 inches long, which is a very small package, but it still gets it done. Now, the weight is also fairly small at 9.5 ounces with the mount, so overall this is a fairly small, fairly lightweight package. Now, the material choice is, of course, 6061 T6 aluminum in a very nice black anodization, and it does, of course, come with this very nice flip-to-side mount. Now, the first thing that people always ask me about specific magnifiers, or they comment them down below, is, hey, is it reversible? Is it reversible? Yes. This uses a standard pattern. There really is no standard magnifier pattern, but this does use the more standard 2-bolt pattern on the magnifier to the mount itself. And so to flip it, you would simply undo the 2 bottom bolts on the 2-bolt design, and you would just turn the magnifier around and then flip the mount to the other side to get it to flip to the left or to the right, depending on what you wanted to do. Now, getting into the mount itself is very good. They did a good job designing it. It does, however, have one little flaw with it, which we'll talk about on this short 8.5 AR pistol. And so the mount itself is, of course, fairly small. It's very compact. They did a very good job with it. Has their standard, kind of how they have it on their new AMG Huey as well, their locking tab. So you actually have to push down on this locking tab before the QD lever will release and allow you to take it off of your upper receiver. It has a singular crossbolt, which is just fine, and the nice thing about this crossbolt is that it is squared off, which basically makes it act like a recoil lug. On a magnifier, not that big of a deal because, of course, this is not affecting the zero on your red dot, or at least a very minuscule amount. So it's not important or it's not necessary, but it is still a very nice feature to see. It uses a good amount of force, and it really locks, really snaps into position. So I think that the mount itself, it doesn't use quite as much force as the Primary Arms 3x magnifier. It uses a little bit less force, but when it locks into position, it is very, very definitive about locking into that position. The design on the mount itself is very nice. It's very aesthetically pleasing. To tighten it down or to loosen it, because rails can have a tiny bit of difference between them depending on coatings and all that sort of fun stuff. You can use a flathead screwdriver or the tip of a bullet or some other small device to turn this locking nut on the other side, and that will adjust how far it closes when you, of course, close the QD lever. Now, when we get into the bottom of the mount, it does, of course, use a semi-standard 2-bolt mounting design, so I believe this is compatible with the Primary Arms mounts, with the EOTech mounts, and I'm sure a few other mounts on the market as well, probably the fast mounts from Unity. So I believe that this is compatible with most other magnifier mounts on the market, though again, your mileage will vary. Now, as I have it set up right now, I have the singular riser plate installed, so it actually comes standard out of the box at a 141, which is your absolute co-witness, and then it comes with an optional riser plate of a 1.63. Now 1.63 you can use on a 141 and vice versa, or a 153. Most of the time when I have a magnifier, I usually try and bump it up a little bit taller, and that's going to allow me to fluctuate for different optics. Most of the optics that I'm running are lower 1/3 anyways, so it works out quite well. Though if you are running an absolute, you can absolutely take out that spacer and run it at the lower height, though generally speaking I like to run it a little bit taller. Now because this is the shorter optic body, even though it does have a nicer eye relief, or a decent eye relief of 2 3/4 inches, you still need to have it fairly far back on your rail, even on say a braced pistol. And what that means is your QD lever is very, very close to your charging handle. So if you're running a mil-spec charging handle, especially with gloves on, and you really need to get this to like mortar a gun or something if you have a catastrophic malfunction, it's a little bit more difficult with this very, very long QD lever. Now the long QD lever is nice, of course, because you get a lot of force on it, you get a lot of leverage, but because it sticks about 3/4 of an inch past the optic mount itself, it can kind of get in the way of accessing your charging handle. It's more of a quirk and a minor downside. I wouldn't say it's a deal breaker, because of course on a good AR-15 you're really not using the charging handle all that much, but in case of emergency it's going to be a little bit harder. Now this can also be solved by having an extended charging handle, an ambidextrous charging handle. That will alleviate this issue as well, but again it is something to note that the rear end of the QD lever is only about a 1/2 inch or so away from the beginning of your mil-spec charging handle. So you can of course simply push this forward, but then you have to crane your head a little bit more forward, and depending on your body type maybe that's a little bit easier. For me personally, because it's the combination of the shorter optic body and shorter eye relief that you generally get in these micro or really any prism style magnifier, so this is the perfect eye relief. So of course if I have it farther forward, then I have to go forward even more and crane my head into a more uncomfortable position. So I like to have it as far back as I can to allow my head to be as natural as possible, which causes it to slightly interfere with the rear charging handle. Not a big deal, and again, depending on what you're putting it on, not an issue at all if it's not a rear charging AR-15. Again, just something to mention. Now, when we get into the optic body itself, everything is done very nicely. The machining on it looks very good. The coating is very even, very nice. It's a very deep black coating, which looks very good. You do, of course, have a rear diopter that is very smooth, very quick, so that will adjust it to make it look as natural, you know, depending on your red dot and your eyes, magnifier, all that sort of fun stuff, distance between them. You just want to make sure that that looks as good and as natural as possible. And sometimes your reticle might look a little bit fuzzy, so you need to, you know, adjust the diopter again for your eyes to make sure that whatever it is that you're looking through there looks as good as it can. Now, of course, not everything is going to line up perfectly, so you do have windage and elevation. They are capped and protected by raised aluminum ridges, which is very nice, so in case of accidental, or in my case on purpose drops, it's not going to damage those whatsoever. Now, as far as zeroing them goes, you're not really zeroing the red dot. You zero the red dot and then zero the magnifier to the red dot, if that makes sense. So basically, you zero the red dot, in this case the SIG Romeo 7S, the Optics Planet modification, which is a excellent optic, especially for the money, and a very nice color that I like, which is the Op Mod version. And of course, then you would center that reticle within the magnifier. Now, I've used this magnifier, as you've probably seen if you watched a lot of the Gun Deals videos. I've used it with the Holosun Aims. I've used it with the EOTech 558. I've used it with the Vortex AMG Huey. All of those, it looks very, very good on. I don't have any problems with it whatsoever. The glass quality of the optics mount itself, or sorry, of the optic itself, looks very good. It's very natural, it's very crisp, the colors are good. There's not a lot of chromatic aberration or edge-to-edge distortions, or I should say edge distortion, so the edge-to-edge clarity is very good. You know, it does have a little bit shorter of an eye relief, but that's just kind of standard for these small prism style optics. While this is technically a Micro 3x prism, you'll probably notice that the body itself is kind of chunky. It's short, but it's definitely a little bit chunkier than some of the other 3x magnifiers on the market. And with the mount, it still only weighs about 10 ounces. Now, depending on your red dot, that means you're going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 ounces for your total package, which is getting close to what lightweight LPVOs weigh. Now, that being said, for me, an LPVO and a red dot magnifier are very different in terms of their use case. With a red dot, of course, you have a perfect 1x, a bright, fire-hot dot that's going to be very, very, very fast up close, probably the fastest thing up close. And then the magnifier allows you to positively identify targets or just stretch it out a little bit further and be a little bit more accurate, whereas an LPVO is designed to excel at a wide variety of distances, all the way out to 5, 6, 7, 800 yards, depending on the LPVO. So now when we talk about price to performance, again, currently I believe the MSRP is like $440, which is like really high. That's a very high MSRP. But of course, street price on Vortex optics are often as low as 50% of MSRP, and in this case, less than 50% of MSRP. When these originally came to market, they were somewhere between $250 and $300. And again, at the time I purchased this about a month ago now, I was able to pick it up for $199. Now, $199 is close, but not quite the bottom end in terms of budget magnifiers. And this definitely doesn't perform like some really cheap magnifier. It feels very good. The mount itself uses an appropriate amount of force and really positively locks in place. There is absolutely no wobble, like no wobble in the mount whatsoever. The glass itself is crisp, it's clear, it looks very nice. It does have a slight quirk with the very large QD lever and your mil-spec charging handle. Again, that's not going to be a problem for everyone, and again, it's just a minor issue at worst, just something worth mentioning. The other thing about it is because it doesn't have like a 3.5-inch eye relief, usually you're gonna be putting it towards the end of your gun. Now, for me, the advantage of having a full-size magnifier, where that magnifier is, say, an inch or so longer, that means that you can actually not put it all the way at the back of your gun. You can push it forward a little bit because, of course, even if this and a full-size magnifier has the same eye relief, the eye relief doesn't start until that pane of glass, right? So if you have a 3-inch eye relief off of an optic that's an inch longer, it has effective eye relief of 4 inches, right? So this very, very short optic with a standard eye relief is actually a little bit shorter than a full-size magnifier with the same eye relief, if that makes sense. And that is something to take into account when you're thinking about what you're going to put this optic on, because of course, maybe if you're running a full-size gun where you're not limited on rail space, where you're not concerned about an extra inch and an extra couple ounces, then maybe a full-size magnifier would legitimately serve you better. Now, in this application, this is an 8.5-inch 5.56 pistol. This is very short. This has exactly 0 extra room on its rail. So I have, of course, a Streamlight HLX up front with its tail switch, and then I have this is one of the new Grove Tech angled foregrips, which works really well. I got a red dot and a magnifier, and I'm pretty much capped out in terms of rail space. So for this sort of gun, for this kind of micro style PDW in 5.56, I might not want a full-size magnifier because I'm already kind of crammed for space, if you will. On a different, longer gun where space really isn't an issue, sure, go ahead and get a full-size magnifier, and maybe that will save you by having a little bit longer mechanical eye relief than this micro would, and it means that you don't have to crane your head quite as far forward. Again, totally a personal preference thing and just something to take into account when you're looking at buying a magnifier and whatever you're going to be throwing it on. Now, the benefit of buying the Vortex Micro 3x is that, of course, with that nice, very nice QD lever, it's just a little long, but the very nice QD lever, you can throw it behind literally everything. So, Overall, I think Vortex brought a very good product to market. I think it's priced extremely well, especially given the competition, and I think its performance and features are very, very good. There are some downsides that are kind of inherent with all micro magnifiers, or just magnifiers in general, but if you want a magnifier for your specific build and you're looking for something on the smaller side, the Vortex Micro 3X is a very good option, especially if you can find it for $199, because that is an absolute steal. So, with all of that out of the way, guys, I hope you all enjoyed. Let me know what you guys think of the Micro 3X Magnifier in the comments down below, and maybe next month or so we'll do a complete 3X Magnifier showdown. So, let me know what you would like to see with that, and with all of that out of the way, guys, I want to thank you guys once again for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace off. Of course I missed that last one. I thought I hit that. I also missed that. My brain didn't work there. I'm sorry, babe. We'll try it again. Alright, that's actually got it. Maybe not in the. That was good. Go and show me that one. We're gonna take. Man, that is just a chunky smack, smack, smack every time I pull that trigger.